They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but I learned that sometimes the truth, served at exactly the right temperature, can be far more devastating. The night my sister Victoria's empire of lies crumbled around her designer heels, I wasn't celebrating. I was simply breathing freely for the first time in years. My name is Esther Chen, and I'm 34 years old. I work as a senior software engineer at a mid-sized tech company in Seattle, living in a modest but comfortable apartment in Capitol Hill with my husband Daniel. We drive a 5-year-old Honda, shop at Trader Joe's, and consider a nice dinner out our monthly splurge. By most standards, we're doing well. By my sister Victoria's standards, we're practically destitute. Victoria is 2 years older than me, married to Marcus Whitfield, who owns a digital marketing firm in downtown Seattle. They live in a waterfront penthouse in Belltown, drive matching Teslas, and their Instagram feeds are carefully curated galleries of luxury and success. For as long as I can remember, Victoria has treated my life as a cautionary tale of mediocrity, using every family gathering as an opportunity to highlight the vast chasm between our lifestyles. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday afternoon in early October. Embossed cardstock with gold foil lettering, unnecessarily elaborate for what it announced. A gala celebrating the 10th anniversary of Marcus's company, Whitfield Digital Solutions. My phone rang before I'd even finished reading it. Victoria's voice dripped with false sweetness through the speaker. "Esther, darling, I do hope you and Daniel received the invitation. It's going to be quite the affair at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel. Black tie, naturally. I trust you can find something appropriate to wear? I know how you prefer your casual Seattle style, but this is a proper event with important people." I gripped the phone tighter, forcing my voice to remain steady. "We'll be there, Victoria." "Wonderful. Oh, and Esther, please make sure Daniel knows this isn't one of those tech casual things he's used to. Marcus's investors will be there, and we can't have any embarrassments." The line went dead before I could respond. I stood in my kitchen, staring at the invitation, feeling that familiar knot form in my stomach. Daniel found me there 20 minutes later, still holding the phone. "Let me guess," he said, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "Victoria?" I nodded, leaning into his warmth. Daniel had been witnessing Victoria's treatment of me for the 5 years we'd been married, and 2 years of dating before that. He'd watched her dismiss his startup as a hobby, belittle our wedding as quaint, and constantly imply that I'd settled for less than I deserved. "We don't have to go," he said quietly. "Yes, we do. Mom and Dad will be there. If we don't show, Victoria will spend the entire evening telling them how we couldn't be bothered to support family." Daniel's jaw tightened, but he nodded. He knew I was right. Victoria had perfected the art of manipulation, especially when it came to our parents. She'd convinced them long ago that her success was the family's success, while mine was merely adequate. The night of the gala arrived faster than I wanted. I'd bought a new dress, nothing extravagant, but elegant enough to avoid Victoria's criticism. Daniel looked handsome in his tuxedo, the one he'd worn to our wedding, and kept in pristine condition. As we walked into the Fairmont's grand ballroom, I felt his hand find mine, a silent reminder that we were in this together. The room was exactly what I'd expected. Crystal chandeliers casting golden light over tables draped in ivory linens, enormous floral arrangements that probably cost more than our monthly rent, and Seattle's business elite mingling with champagne flutes in hand. Victoria stood near the entrance, in a stunning emerald gown that I recognized from her recent Nordstrom haul she'd bragged about on Facebook. "Esther, Daniel!" She glided over, air kissing my cheeks while her eyes conducted a thorough assessment of our appearance. "Oh, what a lovely dress. Is it from Target? They do have some surprisingly nice things these days." Before I could respond, she'd linked her arm through mine, pulling me toward a group of expensively dressed people. "Come, you must meet Marcus's new investors. This is my younger sister, Esther, and her husband Daniel. Esther works in computers, something technical I never quite understand, and Daniel works for a small startup. You've probably never heard of it." The pattern continued throughout the cocktail hour. Every introduction came with a subtle dig, every compliment wrapped in condescension. She introduced Daniel as trying his best in the tough startup world, and me as content with her little job. When someone asked about our recent vacation to Costa Rica, Victoria laughed and said, "Oh yes, Esther and Daniel love their budget travel. It's so adventurous of them." The dinner was worse. Victoria had seated us at a table near the back, while she and Marcus held court at the head table with their most important guests. During the speeches, she made a point of thanking everyone who'd contributed to their success, deliberately skipping over the fact that Daniel and I had helped them move into their first office, or that I'd spent countless unpaid hours helping Marcus set up his initial IT infrastructure. But the moment that changed everything came during Marcus's toast. He stood at the microphone, champagne glass raised, his voice carrying across the room. 10 years ago, I started this company with nothing but ambition and a laptop. Today, we're an 8-figure success story. This proves that with talent and determination, anyone can make it in America. Victoria stood beside him, beaming, her diamond necklace catching the light. "We're so blessed," she added, taking the microphone. "Not everyone has what it takes to build something like this. Success requires a certain caliber of person, a level of sophistication and vision that, frankly, not everyone possesses." Her eyes found mine across the room. "But we're grateful for all our supporters, even those who can only cheer from the sidelines." The room applauded. I felt my face burn with humiliation. Daniel's hand found mine under the table, squeezing hard enough to ground me. Several people at our table shifted uncomfortably, clearly catching the pointed nature of Victoria's comments. "That's it," Daniel whispered. "We're leaving." But as we started to rise, my phone buzzed with a text from my father. "Please don't make a scene. You know how Victoria gets." So we stayed. We smiled through the rest of the dinner, made polite conversation with our table mates, and endured Victoria's victory lap around the room. When we finally escaped to our car at the end of the night, I broke down in tears. "She's never going to stop," I sobbed. "She's always going to see me as less than her." Daniel was quiet for a long moment, navigating the Seattle streets with unusual focus. Finally, he spoke. "What if I told you something that would change everything?" I looked at him through my tears. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if I told you that Marcus's company should have gone bankrupt a year ago? What if I told you that the only reason they're celebrating tonight is because of a $50,000 loan that Marcus has never acknowledged?" My tears stopped. "Daniel, what are you talking about?" He pulled into our apartment complex and turned to face me. "Last year, when Marcus came to me saying he was about to lose everything, I helped him. He was 3 months behind on office rent, about to lose his biggest client, and the bank was calling in his business loan. He begged me not to tell Victoria. Said it would destroy her to know he'd failed." I stared at my husband in shock. "You gave Marcus $50,000? Loaned. I have all the paperwork. Signed contracts, bank transfers, even emails where he promises to pay it back with interest. He said he'd tell Victoria once the company was stable again, but clearly that never happened." "Why didn't you tell me?" Daniel's expression was pained. "Because I knew what you'd say. You'd want to help, even after how they treat us. And I thought Marcus would make it right. I thought once he got back on his feet, he'd at least treat us with respect. Instead, he stands up there tonight talking about how he built everything from nothing." We sat in silence for several minutes, the weight of this revelation settling over me. My sister's husband, the man she held up as a paragon of success, had been saved from bankruptcy by the very person she constantly belittled. "What do you want to do?" I asked finally. "Nothing for now, but I've kept every document, every email, every piece of evidence. Not for revenge, but for protection, in case we ever need it." I nodded slowly. We went inside, and I tried to push the information to the back of my mind, but it sat there, like a loaded weapon I hoped I'd never have to use. 3 days later, Victoria escalated things beyond anything she'd done before. She posted a series of photos from the gala on social media, carefully cropping Daniel out of any group shots and tagging me with captions like, "So proud of my sister for making an effort tonight," and "Even our modest relatives clean up nicely sometimes." But the post that broke me was a long philosophical meditation on success and failure. "Surrounding yourself with excellence elevates you," she wrote. "That's why Marcus and I are so selective about our inner circle. We've learned that some people, even family, are meant to inspire us by showing us what we don't want to become." Grateful for all the lessons, both positive and negative. The comments section filled with her friends agreeing, praising her wisdom, some even adding their own thoughts about cutting out mediocre people. One of her friends wrote, "So true." I had to distance myself from my unsuccessful siblings too. Their victim mentality was toxic. I was reading these comments at work when my colleague Sarah looked over my shoulder. "Is that your sister? The one who's always posting about her perfect life?" I nodded miserably. Sarah was quiet for a moment. "You know, I have a friend who works at the Seattle Times. She's been investigating financial fraud in local tech companies. Apparently, there's been a lot of creative accounting going on to impress investors." I looked up sharply. "Why are you telling me this?" "No reason. Just interesting how some of these supposedly successful companies are built on very shaky foundations." She patted my shoulder and walked away, leaving me with a racing mind. That evening, Daniel came home to find me surrounded by papers, laptop open to multiple tabs of financial records and public filings. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Research," I replied. "Did you know that Whitfield Digital Solutions has been reporting revenue that doesn't match their tax filings? Or that they've been listing fictional employees to inflate their size for investors?" Daniel set down his bag slowly. "Esther, be careful. This could get complicated." "It's already complicated. Victoria has made it clear that she sees us as losers she's embarrassed to be related to. Maybe it's time she learned that her house of cards isn't as stable as she thinks." The opportunity came sooner than expected. That weekend was my parents' 40th anniversary dinner at their house in Bellevue. It was supposed to be a small family gathering, just parents, Victoria and Marcus, Daniel and me, and my aunts and uncles. but Victoria couldn't resist turning it into another stage for her performance. She arrived late, making a grand entrance in a designer outfit that probably cost more than most people's monthly mortgage. "Sorry we're late," she announced. "Marcus just closed another huge deal. You know how it is when you're successful. Work never stops." My mother beamed at them while my father nodded approvingly. "We're just glad you could make it," Mom said. Throughout dinner, Victoria dominated the conversation with stories about their recent trip to Aspen, the new investment property they were considering, and Marcus's plans to expand to Portland and San Francisco. Every story was punctuated with looks in my direction, checking to make sure I was properly impressed or intimidated. When Daniel mentioned that his startup had just secured a new patent, Victoria waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, patents. Marcus never bothered with those. Real entrepreneurs don't need to protect their ideas. They just out-execute everyone else." "That's interesting," I said quietly. "I guess that's why Marcus needed that emergency loan last year." The room went silent. Victoria's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "What loan?" she asked, her voice dangerously quiet. I looked at Marcus, who had gone pale. "You didn't tell her about the $50,000 Daniel loaned you to save the company from bankruptcy?" Victoria turned to Marcus, her face a mask of confusion. "What is she talking about?" Marcus stammered. "It wasn't. It was just a temporary cash flow issue." "A temporary cash flow issue?" Daniel's voice was calm but firm. "You were 3 months behind on rent. The bank was foreclosing on your business loan. You were about to lose your biggest client because you couldn't pay your contractors." I reached into my purse and pulled out a folder I'd been carrying for days. "Here's the loan agreement, the bank transfer records." The emails where Marcus begged Daniel not to tell anyone because it would, and I quote, "destroy Victoria to know the truth." I spread the papers on the dinner table, right between the anniversary cake and the champagne glasses. My parents leaned in to look, along with my aunts and uncles. The evidence was undeniable. Dates, amounts, Marcus's signature, his desperate emails. Victoria snatched up one of the emails, reading it with shaking hands. Marcus had written, "Daniel, you're literally saving my life. Victoria can never know about this. She married me thinking I was successful. If she finds out I'm a failure, she'll leave me. Please, I just need time to turn things around. I promise I'll pay you back and Victoria will never have to know how close I came to losing everything." "You took money from them?" Victoria's voice was rising. "From my sister and her husband? The people you let me mock for being unsuccessful?" "Victoria, I can explain," Marcus started. "Explain?" "Explain how you stood up at that gala and talked about building everything from nothing. Explain how you let me humiliate my own sister while knowing you owed them $50,000? My Aunt Helen, who had always been blunt, spoke up. "Seems to me like Esther and Daniel are the real success story here. They had enough money to save someone else's company and the grace not to mention it." Victoria turned on me, her face twisted with rage. "You did this on purpose. You waited until now to humiliate me." "No," I said calmly. "You humiliated yourself. Every time you called us failures, every time you suggested we weren't good enough for your circle, every time you posted about surrounding yourself with excellence while cutting out mediocrity. You built your entire identity on being better than us, and it was all a lie." "This isn't just about the loan," Daniel added. "I've been patient, Victoria. I've watched you hurt my wife for years. But even after I saved your husband's company, you couldn't show us basic respect. You literally said we were meant to show you what you didn't want to become." My mother finally spoke, her voice heavy with disappointment. "Victoria, is this true? Have you been treating your sister this way?" "She's exaggerating," Victoria said weakly. I pulled out my phone and showed them Victoria's recent social media posts. The cropped photos, the condescending captions, the philosophical musings about cutting out unsuccessful people. My parents read in silence, their faces growing more troubled with each post. "We raised you better than this," my father said quietly. "Both of you. Family supports each other." "Apparently, we did support each other," Uncle Robert said, gesturing to the loan documents. "Esther and Daniel supported Victoria and Marcus to the tune of $50,000. They just didn't get any credit for it." Victoria grabbed her purse, her face flushed with humiliation. "This is entrapment. You set me up." "No," I said. "I just stopped protecting you from the consequences of your own behavior. You could have been grateful. You could have been humble. Instead, you chose to be cruel. That's on you, not me." Marcus tried to salvage something from the wreckage. "The company is doing well now. We can pay back the loan." "With what?" I asked. "The money you've been getting from investors based on fraudulent financial reports?" "Oh yes, I know about that too. Inflating your employee numbers, reporting revenue from contracts that don't exist. Should I continue?" Marcus's face went from pale to gray. "How do you?" "How do I know? Because unlike what you and Victoria think, I'm not stupid. I'm a software engineer. I know how to research, how to read public filings, how to spot discrepancies in data. And right now, you're about 6 months away from an SEC investigation, if anyone decides to look closely." The room was completely silent now. Victoria sank into her chair, the fight gone out of her. The elaborate facade she'd built was crumbling in real time. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. "Nothing," I said, and I meant it. "I don't want your money, your apologies, or your promises to change. I just want you to stop. Stop the posts, stop the comments, stop the performances. Live your life, whatever that looks like, but leave us out of it." Daniel stood, helping me to my feet. "We're going to go now. Happy anniversary, Mom and Dad. I'm sorry this happened tonight." My mother stood too, and to my surprise she hugged me tightly. "I'm sorry too," she whispered, "for not seeing it, for not stopping it." We left them there, Victoria crying, Marcus trying to explain, my relatives processing what they'd witnessed. As we drove home through the Seattle drizzle, I felt something I hadn't expected. Peace. Not satisfaction or triumph, just peace. "Are you okay?" Daniel asked. "Yeah," I said, surprised to find it was true. "I think I am." The aftermath was swift and comprehensive. Within a week, Marcus had transferred the full $50,000 back to Daniel's account, plus interest. Victoria's social media went dark. The few mutual friends we had reported that she'd become withdrawn, paranoid about who knew the truth. A month later, I heard through family that Marcus's company was under investigation. Apparently, one of his investors had started asking questions after hearing rumors about financial irregularities. The house of cards was collapsing, just as I'd predicted. Victoria called me once, about 2 months after the anniversary dinner. Her voice was different, smaller somehow. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me," she started. "You're right," I said. "But I'm listening. Marcus and I are getting divorced. The company is being dissolved. We're selling the penthouse." She paused. "You were right about everything. The fraud, the loans, all of it. He was hiding so much more than just the loan from Daniel." "I'm sorry," I said, and found that I partially meant it. Despite everything, she was still my sister. "Are you? Because you predicted all of this." "I didn't predict it, Victoria. I just saw what was already there. You were both so focused on appearances that you forgot about substance." "I was horrible to you." "Yes, you were." "I don't know how to fix it." I thought for a moment. "I don't know if you can fix it. Some things, once broken, can't be put back together the same way. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we needed to break the old pattern to have any chance at something better." "Do you think we could ever?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "Right now, I need space. I need to not have you in my life while I figure out who I am without constantly defending myself against your attacks. Maybe someday we can build something new, but not now." She was quiet for a long moment. "I understand. For what it's worth, I really am sorry." "I know," I said, and hung up. That was 6 months ago. Victoria moved back in with our parents temporarily, got a job at a regular marketing firm, and started seeing a therapist. She sends me texts occasionally, just checking in, respecting my boundaries. I don't respond often, but sometimes I send back a simple acknowledgement, letting her know I received it. Daniel's startup just got acquired by a major tech company. The payout wasn't enormous, but it was enough for us to buy a house in Ballard, a cute craftsman with a yard and room for the family we're planning to start. We didn't post about it on social media. The people who matter know, and that's enough. I learned something important through all of this. Success isn't about having more than someone else or being perceived as better. It's about having enough, being enough, and knowing your worth regardless of anyone else's opinion. Victoria thought she was teaching me about success by showing me what I supposedly lacked. Instead, she taught me that real wealth is measured in integrity, genuine relationships, and the peace that comes from living authentically. Sometimes I drive past the Fairmont Hotel and remember that night at the gala, how small Victoria tried to make me feel, how desperately she needed everyone to believe she was above us. I don't feel angry anymore. I feel grateful. Grateful that her cruelty finally pushed me to stand up for myself. Grateful that Daniel and I have a relationship built on mutual respect rather than power dynamics. Grateful that I learned the difference between looking successful and actually being successful. The other day, my mom called to tell me Victoria had gotten a promotion at her new job. "She wanted me to tell you," Mom said. "She's doing better." "Good for her," I said, and meant it. "She misses you." "I know. Do you miss her?" I thought about it. I miss who she could have been. I miss the sister I wished I had. But the person she actually was? No, I don't miss that. Maybe she can become someone different. Maybe, I agreed. But that's her journey, not mine. My journey is here, in this house with Daniel, in my career that I've built on merit rather than manipulation, in friendships where support flows both ways. I don't need to document it for public consumption or use it to diminish anyone else. It's mine and it's real, and that's enough. Looking back, the $50,000 loan wasn't what destroyed Victoria's empire. It was just the truth that exposed the foundation was already rotten. She'd built her entire identity on being better than others, particularly better than me, and when that illusion shattered, she had nothing left to stand on. But here's what I've realized. I was never in competition with Victoria. She was in competition with herself, with some impossible standard she'd created where worth was measured in possessions and perception. I was just collateral damage in her war against her own insecurities. Now, as I sit in my Ballard home, preparing dinner with Daniel, our friends coming over for a casual Friday night gathering, I understand what real success looks like. It's Jason from Daniel's startup team bringing homemade bread. It's Sarah from my work sharing stories about her kids. It's laughter that isn't performative, conversations that aren't competitions, and relationships that don't require me to be less so someone else can feel like more. Victoria taught me one final lesson, though I doubt she intended to. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply refusing to play the game anymore. It's choosing truth over perception, substance over style, and genuine connection over curated performance. The truth didn't just set me free, it showed me I'd been free all along. I just needed to stop letting Victoria convince me otherwise, and in the end, that revelation was worth more than any loan, any apology, or any reconciliation could ever be. The last time I saw Victoria was at a Whole Foods in Capitol Hill. She was buying regular groceries, wearing jeans and a simple sweater, her hair in a ponytail. She looked like a normal person, not the carefully curated image she used to project. Our eyes met across the produce section. She raised her hand in a small wave. I nodded back. Then we both continued shopping, two sisters who had finally learned to exist in the same world without needing to prove anything to each other. And maybe, I thought as I selected apples for the pie I was making, that's its own kind of success story.